Hey, just a quick announcement at the front of the episode. This is a special episode. It's an interview with an actual game dev. I really didn't expect this to happen, but yeah, you wanted me to talk about Merchant and Guildmasters, or I wanted me to talk about it, and I said I would talk about it. Less about Merchant, more about Guildmasters, and a new game coming out, Breach Wanderers. So be sure to check that out, and check out all the links below to get access to these games. They're a lot of fun. Check out the Discord; it's a really good community. Also, shout out to my patron, Danny Yeager. If you would like a shout out or to get episodes early or plenty of other rewards, be sure to check out my Patreon, patreon.com/jaxyaks. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and Facebook groups at Fake Gamer Bro. And thank you so much to Domi for editing and letting me use her music, Puzzlin', which you can find on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Domino Thief, or there's a link below in the description. I mean, there's links for like everything below in the description. So, check it out, and without further ado, here is the episode. Welcome to Fake Gamer Bro. I'm your fakest gamer bro, Jackie, aka Jax, and here today I have a very exciting guest. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, my name is Etienne Ponton-Bouchard. I'm a game developer who used to work in AAA and now does small indie games.
Oh, that's exciting. I didn't know you used to work in AAA. Anything we'd know about?
Uh, the one of the reason I left AAA was because I kept getting assigned to projects that ended up getting canceled. So unfortunately, no, there's nothing you would have heard of because they were mostly canceled games.
Oh no. Well, I mean, hey, now you're in indie games and you are making fantastic games. Is Guildmasters the first game you have out?
I made a smaller game before that, but it was mostly like just to have something on my resume. It's called Electromaze Defense. It's a tower defense that's it's nothing like too fancy, but it's a good game if you like the genre.
Oh, I'll have to check that out. I keep wanting to do a tower defense, and I'll see mobile ads for tower defense, and then you download the game, and it's not tower defense at all. They just trick you with the advertisement for some reason.
Yeah, mobile ads are are a whole story.
They're terrible. But yeah, so we are here primarily to talk about Guildmasters, and I mean, I know you didn't make Merchant, but Guildmasters is a fan game for Merchant, right?
Yes. Well, it started off as a fan game pretty much, yeah, but it grew up into its own thing. When I discovered Merchant, I was really excited about the game because it was like this idle formula, but with the way they handled combat, I felt was really smart, and it made me want to play what is essentially a turn-based RPG because usually you do end up doing always the same actions every turn, almost in like the traditional JRPGs and all that. But in Merchant, you just automated plan in advance, so it made it a lot less tedious than having to watch the same animations turn after turn. So I liked the game a lot, but then as I progressed, I felt like it didn't really deliver fully on that concept. So I made a game that really went all in on that, and that was Guildmasters.
Yeah. How would you describe Guildmasters in like a sentence?
That one is hard. It's part of the reason why it hasn't been such a success, but it's an adventure manager idle RPG, I guess.
Yeah. It's got so much customization. I have friends who are I'm bad at customization, so I appreciate that you have like the recommended like suggestions for like leveling them up and the items they could have. But for people who are like really into the nitty gritty, of making sure that every detail is perfect and all the stats are like exactly what they want. I it has so much customization for that. It's really neat. I'm sorry to hear that it's not a great success.
Yeah, well, it's like a niche of a niche, so it was to be expected. I I was more confident, I guess, before it released, but you learn as you go. It's I'm still in the early days of my career, well, early years of my career, so I wouldn't expect to make a giant hit in my first few games.
Yeah, that makes sense, and it's definitely great. The art is great. The music's wonderful to just have on in the background. I usually turn it off because I also listen to podcasts while I play games. I just
Hmm.
multitask like that. But you have a very interesting world which you are revisiting with your upcoming game.
Yeah, I felt like I really enjoyed the world, the characters, and you do see a bit of like cybernetics and fantasy mixed up, but it's usually like in JRPGs, and it's not like it just there's robots, but it's not really explained, and it's kind of a bit weird. So I quite like the world I had it, so I figured I would reuse it, and some of the characters were really interesting, so I wanted to bring them back as well.
Yeah, I think I saw Merly. I think is one that's over both games.
Yeah, for now it's she's the only one, but like Guildmasters has over 20 heroes and Breach Wanderers only has 5 for now, so I'll probably end up adding more in the future, or at least like add heroes that are maybe related to heroes of Guildmasters or stuff like that.
Yeah, and you mentioned the technology, and I think that's really neat. It's like how Shadowrun is mostly future tech with a little fantasy in, and this is like the opposite, where it's mostly fantasy, but it also has some future tech in. And I think that's really neat because I'm not super into like sci-fi stuff for the most part, but I like some of the concepts, and I feel like you did a great mix of like getting the fantasy I personally love, and then all the technology I love.
Hmm.
So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks. Well, because I do try to. Well, I've been a dungeon master in D&D for many years, and I really try to make like believable worlds. But I feel like most fantasy worlds like aren't that believable because people just kind of act like magic doesn't exist. Whereas I feel like if magic did exist, well, you'd have these kind of robots animated by magic and like all of these things to make life easier rather than everyone living just like in the normal medieval times, despite the fact that there are wizards everywhere able to cast spells and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that definitely makes a lot of sense. And then in Guildmasters, you kind of had the figuring out the plot, the mystery of like, what's been going on. And I really like that I guess flying too close to the sun, trying to get the power because you have the magic and you have the technology, and combining them can be great and can lead to some disastrous results like we see in Guildmasters. And I think that's some really great concepts.
Yeah, it's a I had a lot of fun with I was working with a writer for the story and we had a lot of fun devising something together and like making the players realize that like just going out and killing the strongest stuff possible might not always be the right thing to do, even though it's a small game so you don't have any other options, but at least you see like there's always consequences to your actions.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely stuff to build off of for like future games, especially since the new game is set in the same world. It's definitely a very interesting world, and I'm glad you're continuing to explore it. So, Guildmasters ended up getting published by the same company who did Merchant. Do you want to talk about how that came about?
Yeah, I'm not even sure now who contacted who, but I was posting in the off-topic channel on the Discord for Merchant, and I was like recruiting people to help me test the game and all that, since Merchant wasn't getting like many updates or anything, so people were who wanted to play more of things like Merchant were interested in playing my game. And eventually we got to talking and we drafted up a few agreements and it just to us it figured that it would be both like good for both games because like they could have a few ads in Merchant to point people towards Guildmasters and same way around for guildmasters to point toward merchant, and just have something of a cooperation between both games, since they're very similar genres, but they're both also semi AFK, so you can actually play both games at the same time. I know some people who would like split the games half and half on their phone and like play them both simultaneously, so it's not as big of a competition as some other game genres.
Oh, absolutely. I never thought about splitting both games on my phone. I might right now I just like I get obsessed with games, so I just cycle back between like two. It's like, okay, I'm waiting on Guildmasters, so let me go back to Merchant and do this. I'm waiting on Merchant. Let me go play around in I'm sorry, I forgot what your game is called.
Breach Wanderers.
Breach Wanderers. Yes, that's right. And so I just go back through those three. I know I've said a couple of times in your Discord, it's like, hey, I found this while I was working, and so I'll do that. Like, since it isn't, you can just sit around. I'll have it open like on my phone while I'm working, and just glance down and like do some stuff, and then
Hmm.
go back to work. Um, yeah, so yeah, it isn't really a huge competition because like they're different enough that you don't feel like you're playing the same game over and over, but if you like one game, you'll most likely like the other. So it definitely makes sense, especially since it started out as a fan game.
Yeah, and I when you mentioned playing at work, it's I feel bad saying that, but it's really like the perfect game for playing at work because it's kind of AFK. You can just repeat the previous fight and like check it out once in a every 10 15 minutes, restart your fights, and when you have a bit more time, then you can set up for a new fight or a new challenge.
Yeah, exactly. Like, sometimes you just need a break of looking at all the emails coming in, so you just look at your phone for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely great for that. Do you is what is the game called? Retora, or the publisher called Retora?
Yeah,
Retora
Retora
Games?
games.
Yes. I keep wanting to say retro games, and I'm like, that's not it. Is that are they going to be publishing Breach Wanderers too?
No, their Breach Wonders was different enough, and like it didn't really fit any of the other merchant games, so we figured it would be better if I like for now I'll just self-publish it, and I'll see later. I might contact some bigger publishers to see about uh, like publishing the game, but for now I'm gonna try self-publishing.
Okay, yeah, that definitely makes sense. I mean, it because it is a original Left game. It's much more hands-on. So when I play this one at work, it is a little bit harder because I do take more
Yeah.
breaks to just play it. It's like, okay, the enemy's turn's over. Now I got to do stuff again.
Yeah.
um, yeah, but you're doing some really unique stuff. I was talking to my friend who I also got to get in your server and try the game. My editor, Domi, she is much more into deck building games. She's a big Magic the Gathering fan.
Hmm.
Um, so I've been getting some of her opinions on what's going on, and she really likes your pool system where you decide what cards you're going to be getting. What is it, after you're like level 3 or something? You decide what cards you're going to be getting like pooled later in the game, so like you won't still be getting like, I don't play this game like this, I don't need any of those cards. And it's just super customizable, and that's apparently unique to the genre, and I definitely really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's something I like to do in all my games. Like I like to really, and even as a DM in D&D is the same thing. I want to give like power to the player to figure out their own solution to a problem. Like I'm not and those games are good where you have to find the solution that the designer intended that can work. It's just not the kind of things I personally like to make. Like I like to create a puzzle, throw tools at the player, and let them figure out a solution because I usually don't even know the solution myself, like the best one. So that's really how it's sometimes it's hard to balance because of that, because I don't necessarily know the solution and maybe the tools interact in a way that makes it a bit overpowered, but that's part of the fun of the process. So for Breach Wanderer specifically, since I didn't want to play too much with the like RPG aspects and assigning points and all that, because then you'd have to remake them for every deck or whatever. So I mostly focus on the decks themselves. I've started playing Magic the Gathering when I was, I think, 8 or 10 years old, and
Nice.
now I'm 31. I've stopped playing for the past few years, but I did play like thousands and thousands of hours of deck building games like Magic and then Eternal and then like Mythgard and like most of them that you can find on Steam. I've at least tried a little bit. So I wanted to bring that into roguelike the deck builder because every time I played one, like I played Slay the Spire, and then it's like, oh, I like this deck. I'll try to play it, and then you do a run and you never see any of the cards for that deck, and then you level up and they say, hey, here are these new cards that come to your pool. But maybe they don't even fit the deck that I wanted to play, so I just diluted the pool even more. So now the deck I want to play, I'm even less likely to be able to play it. So and I tried all of these deck builder games, like the roguelike ones, and they all had the same progression where as you progress, they just reward you by diluting your pool, which I felt bad, I didn't want to level up because I wanted my pool to be focused. So uh, I I was thinking, can I make this game without making the player feel bad for leveling up? And that's how I came with the concept of like, well, I'll just let them build their decks and share them with their friends, and then they can compare and try to find really like the best decks for each character. And then I'll try to put more randomization in the run in terms of like very strong items that can synergize with your build or not, and things like that. So that's the main spirit of the game.
Yeah, it's really great because Domi is currently playing Monster Train. Have you played that one?
Yes, I did a little bit, but I was not the biggest fan.
Yeah, because she's finding those same issues that you're talking about in Monster Train, where it's like, she has specific builds in mind and she keeps finding all the wrong cards.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's very helpful for this. And I really like how you have multiple solutions because one of the first games I talked about on this podcast, Simplest RPG, I went to the Discord to figure out some stuff, and they're like, yeah, for the first 400 levels, you basically have to play with a sword and shield, and if you don't, then you're just losing out on so much. Like that is just the wrong build. And I'm like, I don't want to play a game where it tells me what build I have to have for 400 levels. Like,
That sounds insane.
yeah, yeah, like, you level up pretty fast, like, I think I was around, like, level 213 by the time I stopped playing, but it's like, I like playing rogues, so I wanted to play with a bow because, I like dexterity builds. So, the fact that it, like, punished me because I wasn't using the right build was just frustrating.
Yeah,
So
that
the
reminds me. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying the customization here is really great.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I don't know if you've played Dragon's Dogma, which is like an amazing game, but they had this terrible leveling system where like you can switch between classes at will, but every time you level up, you gain stats based on the class you played at. And like some of the stats were just better than others. So you have to like kind of reach this max level on the class that gives the best stats before you can start playing with the class you actually want to play.
Oh man, yeah. No, I played a little bit of it, but I couldn't get too into it. I think at the time I just really liked more linear stuff and that was way too
Hmm.
open for me at the time. But yeah, no, it's stuff that you'd have to research to figure out like, oh, well, here's the best stuff. And I just like playing games. This is called
Hmm.
Fake Gamer Bro because I'm bad at games because I don't know all the best tactics and everything for that. So I just like to play how I like to play. And your games really let me do that. Like especially with the hints in or the recommended stuff in Guildmasters where it's like, okay, yeah, sure, this makes sense for this character. I'll do that.
Hmm.
But like still, if I ever decide, nah, this is better, like I'm not gonna be punished for wanting to do something different.
Yeah, exactly. To me, that's really anti how I make games. Like it's like do whatever you want, and if you find out something like completely crazy, well, congrats. Like I'm proud of you. That's amazing. It's why I make these games and these puzzles and all these options to let people figure out like their favorite option. And one of the favorite thing for me is like when I'll have a player tell me, "Oh, this is OP," and then another player right away tell me like, oh no, this same thing is completely sucks. So then I know that I've made it right, because like when players can't agree on like what is good and what is bad, then you know you've made a balanced game.
For sure. Like some players just know how to play that card a lot better, and some players don't want to mess around with it and do something else. Yeah. No, that's great. And then I also love all the options you have for like I was starting a new save file so could record some footage of guildmasters from the beginning. And I realized you have a bunch of options for like different um types of plays. Like I think I can't remember all the options you have. You have one where it's like for speedrunners, you have one where you can only use one hero. What kind of inspired that?
Uh, well, it's a little bit the same principle. I saw what people wanted to play, and like they were asking, oh, I just wish I could. Well, actually, for the solo, for example, people were just doing it. They were creating new save files, and they were just playing with one hero. So I figured, well, might as well make it an option that people can use. And then some other types, some were people were finding the game maybe a bit too easy, so I made more difficult game modes that they could try. And in the last patch, I even made an endless mode for people who were fan of like the more common idle RPGs that just go on forever and ever. It's still not the same because it's not, the game is not built for it, but that mode is still pretty fun, and I saw a lot of players like do completely insane things with like getting their heroes to level like 500 and stuff like that. So
Oh
that was
man.
pretty cool.
Yeah. No, that's great. So if you were in charge of Pokemon, you'd put a Nuzlocke option in there because everyone plays Nuzlocke anyway.
I haven't played Pokemon, so
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, yeah. Nuzlocke is like a thing that they put on themselves to make it harder. So when your Pokemon faints, you can't use that Pokemon anymore.
oh,
And so stuff like that, like stuff rules they put on themselves that some people I think code mods for games where you can do that.
hmm,
Um, yeah, it's like you do, where it's like, yeah, people were playing it like this anyway, so just made it easier for them to play like that.
yeah.
Um, yeah, no, that's really cool. I love all the just all the options you have for stuff. So you said Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering, and then some of those other deck building games. Were there any other games you've played for a while that kind of inspired you to get to where you are now with the games you make?
Well, I play a lot of games, so it would be a long list to say. Like I pick up a few things from here and there. For
Yeah.
example, in Breach Wanderers, like the what really triggered the like, oh, I can make this game was by playing Pirate Outlaws on mobile, which is
Oh.
another roguelike deck builder, but like the graphics were really simple, and there's no animations. It's just like the little bubble up and down that I also do, and it looked great. It still looked great for that game, and that kind of made me think, oh, I can actually do that without like spending $50,000 in art budget or having like crappy animations that like, because some games they feel like they have to have animations, but they don't really have the budget, so it ends up looking like really bad.
Yeah.
So to me, I'd rather have no animation than bad animations. But seeing that play out in Pirate Outlaw, that really made me feel, oh, if they can make it, like I know I can make it, because the design side is not that much of a challenge for me. And I saw that they were like a team of, I think, 7 or 8 working on that game, maybe even 10. So that made me think, well, if they can make this game and make enough money to keep pushing updates and all that, well, if I'm just me and one artist, it's going to be easy to 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 make it profitable.
Yeah, so you have one artist who does all the art because you got some really detailed good art for your games.
Yeah, I'm just like, I have no merit in that. I'm just incredibly lucky that I just look randomly on the internet and I find these amazing artists that just stick with me and with all my crazy ideas, and they just put out amazing stuff. And that's I'm thankful every day for the artists I meet that allow me to do that, because they're so amazing.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's always good to have an artist friend. That's my problem with game dev is like I have these ideas, but all my artist friends are busy with all the other things they're doing.
Hmm.
So I'm just gonna stick to choose your own adventure text-based games for now. It's like
Yeah.
that's what I'll build because
Well,
yeah.
well, it helps when you pay them. I
Yeah,
found that to be true.
that's true. One day I'll have money and I would love to be able to pay like right now I'm barely able to pay my video editor and my audio editor just a little bit, like
Hmm.
nowhere near, but like yeah, I goals would be able to pay people, but hey, they have free packs online that you can get for just like simple RPG stuff. But yeah, no, it's your artist is fantastic for these games. It's very detailed. It very like has a really good vibe for the world you're building.
Yeah, it's been just I just want to mention it's been like Guildmaster has had three artists and Breach Wanderer is a fourth, which is a new artist. Um, and all of them were amazing. I've been incredibly lucky.
Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, and because people need to know that like they don't have to have like the absolute best animation, the best everything because I mean, Merchant, which Guildmasters was a fan game of initially, like has very very simple graphics.
Yeah,
It's
like let's be honest, it doesn't look good. Like
no, like
it's
it's very it's very
it's
old retro kind of
yeah, it's
ish.
the simplest style of pixel art, and it doesn't even like there's no animation at all and anything. And we were all like millions of us were hooked on that game despite that. So like and like I know they commissioned that art, so it can't have been like more than a few $1,000s at most for the whole game. So it puts it into perspective. Like my first tower defense cost me maybe I paid an artist for the UI and that was I think 1.5 thousand.
Hmm.
Guildmasters I ended up spending more than I really needed to or should have, and it cost me about 10,000 I think across like 1 or 2 years, and I think British Wanderers will end up being even cheaper than Guildmasters. So if you like scope well and really look at like what you can do and what you need to do, it can end up being not all that expensive. Well, I know it's still like
Still
money,
a
but
lot of
it's not
money,
like
but like compared to game dev, like games cost a lot of
yeah,
money.
exactly. It's not like 200 grand to make your little game. Like anybody, well, not anybody, but most people can end up saving like five to $10,000 in a few years to be able to pay for that.
Yeah, or like if they have some of it done, they can do like a small Kickstarter
Hmm. Yeah.
or stuff like that. Yeah, no, it's definitely great. How long have you been working on Breached Wanderers?
To be honest, not very long. Like it's not a hard game. I It's no wonder there are so many roguelike deck builders out there because they're not hard to make. It's very simple stuff. So I think I started like not this Christmas, but the one before, so a year and a half. But most of that time I was part time because at first I was working on Guildmasters at the same time, and then I took a job for 5 to 6 months at another gaming company. Um, so I've been full time on it for only not even 6 months,
Oh man.
and then one
Uh
year of part time. So it's a really simple game.
yeah, no, that's great. I guess like for me, like I'm bad at the balancing stuff, like I kind of mentioned. So to me, it's like, oh man, you did all that balancing. But I guess if you're like, you've been DMing and playing like these deck building games for ages, so it might come a bit more easily to you than it would for me. And but yeah, I mean, like for a game that you haven't worked on, comparatively that long, like it's still like pretty solid. When are you expecting it to go? I think you said you early access is the next step
Yeah, on June 4th.
on June 4th. Awesome. So that's going to be um really soon, like
Yeah, two
probably
weeks.
2 weeks. Dang. Yeah. So that's just going to be a week after this episode comes out. So definitely go wish wishlist that on Steam. Is can you wishlist that on Google Play? I think they can do it
Uh,
for
you,
some
you
things.
can pre-register, but
Pre-register.
yeah, it's like you'll get a notification when it comes out.
Okay. Yeah. Is it I can't remember what you said about iOS, like maybe a future thing?
It will. My plan is to release like when the game releases to have it on iOS as well.
Okay.
But for now, for the early access phase, it will be Steam and Android.
Okay. Well, just about everyone should have access on Steam. It's not like it's gonna take all the processing power, so
No,
um
and that's the advantage of making it work for both mobile and PC. I have to optimize the game highly.
mhm.
So after that, if it can run smoothly on the phone, like any PC can play that game
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah, for sure. Um yeah, oh, speaking of that, are you gonna have cross saves? Like, because I know Merchant, you can upload it to a cloud and then have it. Is that something you're planning on for Reached Wanderers?
Probably not because the game might have a few tuning differences between the platforms.
Gotcha. Hmm.
And also because it's still a lot of work to set up your own servers, and then like when the thing
Yeah.
breaks, everybody is like after you. So the game will have cloud save per platform, so like your Steam save
Hmm.
will be across all of your Steam computers, and if you change your Android phone, well, the save should also work on your new Android phones. But cross save is might not happen, but who knows, we'll see.
Yeah, no, that's fair. The servers are a lot.
Yeah.
And getting all that to work is definitely a lot of work. Um okay, well, I think my cat says that it's enough time talking, and I'm sure you've heard him in the background whining because I trapped him in here. Um but yeah, so where can people go to find more of your game? Do you have a Twitter or any other links to plug?
Well, they can look for the game on Steam. They can look for it on Google Play. There's the Discord that I think you mentioned you would link, and there's always the Baronnerie Games website as well that they can just visit to have a list of all of our games. But if they really want to get in contact and like have me answer within the moment, I'm super active on Discord, so I would recommend people go there.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and I will have all those links in the description so everyone can go everywhere they need to go to get a hold of you. Definitely recommend the Discord for both games because there's a lot. It's a pretty good community on there that everyone's showing their builds. I've definitely had to lean on other people's builds for guild masters for
Yeah.
especially like the last couple of bosses like the White Flame. White Flame is what it's called, right?
Oh yeah, the White Flame Bear.
Yeah, the White Flame Bear always messes me up. So I'm like, what build did you use for this?
Yeah, well, if you manage to get there, it's quite a challenge. It's a
Yeah,
big
yeah.
accomplishment.
Yes, I did get there, and it's still tough. But yeah, so definitely everyone's pretty helpful about helping you figure stuff out, and there's always good people to get ideas from. So yeah, definitely check out the Discords, keep an eye on the game wish list, and I'm looking forward to more developments for this game and what you'll be doing in the future. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm glad. So yeah, and I will see you guys again in 2 weeks. Thank you to Domi for editing the show and for our theme song, which you can find at Domino Thief on SoundCloud and in the show's notes. Also, thank you to our fakest fan tier member, Danny the Spoon Lord, for your support. If you'd like to get a shout out or just support the podcast, head on over to ko-fi.com/jaxyaks, link also found in the show notes, and sign up for as little as $1 a month. For all other links, head over to jaxyaks.com where you can always find the latest information. Thanks for listening.